Today we're going to see why the indirect approach is the easiest way to improve your paintings, especially if you're painting complex subjects like faces and human bodies. Basically, there are two schools of thought, direct and indirect. Direct is another word for alla prima, one layer in one go, wet on wet, and indirect is a technique in which the painting is constructed in multiple layers, wet on dry. Of course, it all depends on your approach, and obviously you can do some wonderful things with the direct approach, but for a portrait, sometimes a single layer doesn't quite achieve a satisfying result. That's why we'll see how to let the painting dry and improve it wet on dry with a couple of quite simple techniques, but very effective. In a previous video, I showed you how to paint a portrait and how to use light and volume to make it look more artistic. I ended up with this. It's alright, the model is nice, so the result is satisfying. By the way, if you've missed the video, I'll put a link in the corner there or in the description below so that you can watch it first. Today, let's call it part 2. I want to show you how you can get an even better result easily. And by the way, if you want to see the complete real-time version of this demonstration, it's on my Patreon channel, as well as hours upon hours of real-time content and commentary. So if you're interested, make sure to check the link in the description. Alright, so let's start. Observe and plan. The first thing to do when you choose an indirect multi-layered approach is to take the time to observe, take notes, and come up with a clear plan. What are the strengths and weaknesses of what you've painted so far? Why does it need to be retouched? Is a new layer really necessary? Can you point to specific parts that need special attention? My suggestion is to write it down and create a checklist. It will not only help you remember what to do, but it will also keep you from overworking and going too far. Alright, let's start our second painting, and that's actually the technical term for this phase. The very early stage is the underpainting, then comes the first painting, which was the previous video, how we got there, and now we are reaching the second painting. Should you paint a third painting, a fourth, a fifth, and so on? Really, it's up to you. It depends on how successful the previous stages were. Very important thing, don't stack up layers in vain. Always try to finish with the minimal number of layers. So I'm going to paint a second painting, but still, my goal is to make it final. Now, at the end of the day, maybe I won't be satisfied, then there will be a reason for a third painting, but I'm not seeing that far ahead. If you plan your painting and you voluntarily envision to have 10 layers, that's way too many. Always focus on the current layer as if it was the last one, even though it might not be. At least give it a chance. Mentally, it really changes everything. Because it's really easy to think about fixing stuff later and at some point ending up with too many things to fix and no motivation or direction anymore. So always consider that whatever you're doing is final, even when you're working indirectly. If you like my approach and want to learn more about painting, know that I have 2 courses available. My first course is focused on oil painting techniques from beginner to intermediate, and my second course is more advanced and focuses on color theory and its application for painters. I've received great reviews, very proud of them, so if you want to learn painting in color, I'm sure they can help you. I'm going to start with opaque impasters to thicken the light areas of the face. I'm mixing a new highlight color, trying to get as close to what I had before, but maybe with a slight nuance. It's never necessary to get the exact same color you had before for skin tones. And actually for the skin, it's better to have a little bit of variation, ever so slightly. This way the skin is going to appear more natural, and you won't end up with the plasticky look that you can get when the skin is painted with the same exact color all over the place. I start with a relatively large hard bristle brush and build up the opacity progressively, trying to both caress the surface and reinforce the texture at the same time. Scumbling is a technique consisting in scrubbing an opaque, relatively light layer of paint. Of course, it's done wet on dry. Scumbling is done with an undiluted, opaque, and generally pale pigment. It provides strong textural effects, very effective for skin texture, but it can also be used on various subjects to raise the key of a dark colored area. Scumbling can serve two functions. It can either be used to visually soften an area or to lighten it. Scumbling, as we said, must be done over a dry paint layer, and you typically apply the paint using an almost dry brush technique. A hog bristle is ideal for this type of technique. And what about the fat over lean rule? Is there any medium in the paint? Basically, your paint already has some medium in it because it needs to follow the fat over lean rule as usual. However, you just want to make it fat enough but not too fluid. It's the opposite of a glaze. You want the paint to be less fluid than normal. It needs to be more pasty, more sticky. To give you an idea, more like butter and less like cream if you want. For extra texture, I sometimes like to use impasto medium when I scumble, and very often I let it sit on the side so that it can become more sticky with time, and then I use it. It creates a very interesting texture which really complements carnations well. It gives a very interesting surface. For the lips and maybe here and there to push the color, I'm going to use glazes. Glazing is a technique I've already covered multiple times on my channel. It consists in applying a transparent or semi-transparent layer on a dry painting. To know if your pigment is transparent and therefore suitable for glazing, check your paint tube and look for a little transparent square symbol. All transparent pigments can work for glazes, as well as most semi-transparent ones. A glaze requires fluidity to be applied thinly, however it doesn't require it to be drowned in medium. Just use regular medium as you would for any normal paint, following the fat over lean rule as usual, and if you feel that it needs a better flow, just add a couple of drops of medium just to make it more fluid. There is no secret or specific medium required for glazing, simply a reliable liquid medium and a transparent pigment. That's all you need. In my case, I'm using quinacridone rose and transparent red oxide. They're both transparent. In portraits, I always use glazes in combination with opaque paint. This way I can balance the effect and control the overall transparency. I don't just lay a big glaze all over the place. I glaze here and there and tone it down with a few touches of opaque paint here and there if needed. The opaque pigments I use in this case are yellow ochre, burnt umber to create some type of black, and white, of course. Lastly, I'm going to focus on the Sfumatto effect. In other words, I'm going to soften all the transitions that I feel don't look right. To do that, I use a mix of scumbles, glazes, and velatura, which is a word I use for an in-between technique consisting in covering transitions with a semi-opaque dark veil to soften the transition and remove the unwanted brush marks. I know I'm the only one using this word, velatura. It's actually the Italian term for glazes. Call it however you want. The idea is the same. Cover the transitional area with relatively dark, semi-opaque paint to soften it and remove unwanted brush marks. The idea of indirect painting is that the more you let it dry and do it again, the softer it gets. And as I said, I suggest starting each layer as if it was the final one, but you can perfectly decide to make several coats to increase the strength of the sfumato. It's up to you, really. Finally, I just cover the entire portrait, fix things here and there, and I finish with a nice color for the background to complement the color of the lips. And yeah, in the end, I'm just looking for like small things to fix here and there. It doesn't look like much, but sometimes the small things can have a great impact on the final result, especially around the eyes. Alright, that's going to be it for this video. If you liked it, remember to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to support the channel. Again, a huge thank you to my Patreon members. This video wouldn't be possible without your support. If you want to join the community, you'll find a link in the description below. You'll also find a link to both my courses, my oil painting course and my color course. Alright, that's it for today. As always, joy and inspiration to you, my friends.